Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
I want to welcome everybody to the 110 Nation Sports Show. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. You can find me on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com, for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. I got to make sure that I thank Fit for Life. You got to check them out on Facebook. Fit for Life. You can also go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. Right-hand side, I got this nice, pretty, beautiful, yes, that banner for you set up. All you do is click on it, see if there's a location near you. 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Clean facility, courtesy staff, everything you guys need. Make sure you guys check them out. Fit for Life. I'm also going to thank Snafu Seasoning, the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock. Make sure you guys tune in. 100% all-natural, no preservative meat rub. I was about to check that all up. Great for grilling. Make sure you guys check them out. That's Snafu Seasoning. I also got to thank Mile High Radio and I-95 Sports for rebroadcast or syndicating our shows. Without them, we would not be able to continue doing the things we do. So I got to thank each and every last one of them. Tell you what, I'm just now finally tallying up all the it was a horrible weekend. God, Arizona still almost lost too. Check. Not quite the weekend that I was hoping for. 6 and 7. I tell you what, that makes a big difference from last week when I went 12-1 on football Sunday and versus the 6 and 7 record I have this week. Rather disappointing. Mike's going to come on here and he's going to glow because he had more what I was hoping for. I believe he said he went 9-4. Tallying up. Shannon did send me his picks. I will tally his up as well. But let me go ahead and get Mike on here. We got some Phoenix talk to talk about. We got Homestead next weekend. I was supposed to be there. Kind of disappointed. Very disappointed. Not kind of. We got some interesting games. How about them Cowboys? My Cleveland Browns making a statement that they want the number 1 pick. They're sitting 0-10. Some very interesting close games. I tell you what, if you did not see how the Denver Broncos and New Orleans Saints game ended, you might want to go back and check that out. That game ended very interestingly. But anyway, let's get Mike on here, see what we got going on Friday night, see how he could be liked, followed, and all the whatnot, and let's get into this today.
Hey, CJ, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Okay. Friday night, we got a good guest so far, one guest, and I'm going for 2 more that need to be confirmed. But we definitely have one confirmation. Bob Vernon will be on Friday night. Supposed to be on last week, and we got crossed up, and he didn't get back to me. But this weekend I managed to confirm him through him and his wife, so he will be on Friday night. 1 week late in the sense that we were going to 2 weeks ago or two weekends ago, he got a little party thrown for him because he's 2016 was his 40th year in auto racing, announcing, and PR and a lot of different things, websites, etc. And so we'll have him on discussing his broadcasting and auto racing career locally, and talk to him about all his duties at the track, and a couple of other people that I want to get on that will be participating in the Turkey Derby. So I'm going to look into that and see how many of the drivers I can get on that will be participating in that. And, of course, just to throw it out there, from last week's show, that on the 19th of November, which is a Turkey Derby practice day, there will also be a John Blewett III memorial event run by the Blewett family. And those of you on Facebook can get hold of Janice Blewett, or you can call Woody's Tavern in Farmingdale, New Jersey, and they will give you the information regarding that event on the 19th of November. But if you listen to the show, if you missed it, you go to the archive and you can hear more about that event from Janice as she was on the program with us last week, CJ, this past Friday. And as far as anything else I've got going on, we'll be talking about NASCAR, of course, in a second. But I've also put a couple of things up, as I do every week and every day, really, about on the 110 page. Basically, one of the things that confirmed what we've been saying all along, CJ, is that the thing that sticks out in my mind off the top of my head is that Tony Romo will back up Dak Prescott. So Jerry Jones will not do something stupid like sit Dak Prescott down. So at least for now, when he comes back, he will be the backup to Dak Prescott. So that's one of the things we also mentioned on the show. Ad infinitum that I guess Jerry Jones, I want to, say that he listens to the show, or someone got him the information, I guess, and he's taking our advice, I guess, CJ.
I wonder how Tony Romo was taking this. Like, you've been the golden child in Dallas for all this time, and up until this last couple weeks, you've been pretty much told when you come back, you get the starting role back. And that Prescott has even been saying that, this is Tony Romo's team, this, that, and the other. Now the roles have changed, and now, we're probably not going to do that to, yes, you're going to be backed up. Like, I wonder how Tony Romo was feeling about all this.
Again, I think I don't know, but I don't sense that even when he was even in the past, he wasn't like a locker room problem. And if he looked at it unemotionally, and just privately to himself, I think it's seeing the record and seeing what's happened, I don't think he could, ego can get in the way, but he doesn't seem to be a problem in the locker room as far as that goes. And I think if you looked at it, like I said, unemotionally, he would see that how could you possibly sit this kid down with the way he's performed. He's performed so above, you want to say, expectations for a normal, quote-unquote, rookie that, so far above what was expected that, I have to believe that Romo, and again, I don't know, I don't live in Dallas or get a chance to read the local media that often. I Google it once in a while to see what's out there. But, in terms of being around the papers and the media in the local area, but I don't sense that it'll be a problem. That it's a problem with him, especially in view of the performance. If it was something that didn't stick out, you would say, okay, and that's the old adage always is, you don't lose your job because of an injury. And that's why Romo originally sat out with the bad back and the broken back or whatever it was and so forth. But I don't see it being a problem, for him, for the Cowboys more than for Romo. I don't see it being a problem because I don't think that Tony Romo will give them a problem over it.
Well, a little side note here as we track on the season. Of course, us here in the 110 Nation studio, we've been picking picks this year, and we missed a couple weeks. I know 1 week I was out of town, and I don't know if we started right on week 1. I can't remember, but
we did.
Update. This has gotten real interesting. An updated year-long record for all of us. Shorty and myself have tied it up. Here we are 10 weeks into it, and we are tied with a 67-50-2 record. Mike has closed the gap, only 3 games behind Shorty and myself with a 64-43 record. And then Shannon, he jumped in about halfway into the season with a 37-32 record. With the winning percentage, it has all played itself out to where Shorty and myself have the top winning percentage. Mike has slipped into the second place, and Shannon has fallen to the third place with winning percentage. We just use a winning percentage record for when we compare Shannon into it. But for the top 3 of us here, the ones that have been here all season, Shorty and myself, 67-50, and Mike, 64-43.
Helped greatly by a 9-4 so far. Looking for a 10-4. We'll see what happens.
Why is that not right? Hold on, something's not right. You can't have 3 less wins than us and 7 more losses. Something is not.
I went 9-3 so far this week. So I always count. I counted up before the Monday night game, obviously. And New England lost. I guess not so surprisingly, because that game was even. Those 2 teams were even. I just based it on, really, first of all, you can't bet against New England. You said that. But also them being home, I guess it was a little bit of a surprise, at least to me, that Seattle won on the road at New England, at, whatever it is, whatever the Massachusetts there is, I forget the city, I guess, Gillette Stadium or whatever it's called. But,
keep going. I'm trying to figure out where I mathematically did a whoopsie, because you should have just as many losses behind us as you do wins. If you've lost, well, you should have 3. If you have, why does that not add up to what I need to add up? If you have 3 less losses, that means you should have 3. if you have 3 less wins, then you should have 3 more losses than us. And something's not. Where did I mathematically go wrong here? So at 53 and 39, you were 5 behind us, and those mathematically added up. Then 8 and 3 and 7 and 4. That's 55 and 38. So you were. How's that? That does not add up. What am I? Anyway, as I try to do my math, for some reason I'm not doing simple math here. Did you get the opportunity to see how that Denver and New Orleans game? That was one of the games that I know I picked New Orleans. You picked Denver, so you got the win, and so did Shannon. But that was a game that I watched. I sat there and watched as I'm watching the red zone. I watched the New Orleans Saints come back, and it was a hell of a game anyway. But watching the Saints come back, score a touchdown late in the game, and to tie the game, an extra point would put New Orleans up and essentially win the game for them. And the Denver Broncos special teams timed it perfectly, leaked the New Orleans Saints line, blocks the kick, and they take it to the house to go up 25-23. It was kind of one of those plays you just had to sit there like, did that just really happen?
Yep. And I saw the highlights. I didn't see the game because it wasn't on in the local area here, and I don't get red zone in the house here. But the interesting thing was that we've said it all along, CJ, and that's a team I would put right now, the 2 teams, even though they lost yesterday, New England and Denver. When it comes down to it, and, you think it's like last gasp time, the 2 teams to me that stick out year in and year out are Denver and New England. And once again, you figure, okay, offensively, maybe, again, with a kid, you started out the year saying this and go right down through it. Whether that kid is in there or his backup is in there or whatever, it's going to be the defense and, in this case, the special teams that come through. And here it is again. And whatever they need, it's impressive in that whatever they need to happen, whatever unit's out there with a chance to win the game or to swing the momentum the other way, that's the unit that comes through. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
All right, I'm gonna have to update our records. I missed the whole week. That's why it didn't make sense to me. So my update. It's like, this just doesn't make sense. And Shorty will not have tied with me. She's still 2 games behind me. I thought that was kind of weird how that just played out that quickly, and things changed that rapidly, and how quickly I went from a 60-something% to a barely 50-something%. But I'm going to redo this. Baltimore.
Math was not my strong suit either, so that's
It's not the math part. It's the fact that I just skipped a whole week of games that.
Okay.
I compared that to the week before, so I'm getting ready to hop in here and do this again. Baltimore went ahead and did their thing on Monday night as they beat the Cleveland Browns, who were up 7-6 at halftime, make a quarterback change, and things kind of went downhill from there. Atlanta and Philly was another interesting match that went back and forth all day long. A lot of these games were very close. Washington, their game was really interesting. The Washington Redskins and the Minnesota Vikings. We watched the Minnesota Vikings start off the season 5-0, and we're sitting here talking about where the hell did this team come from, and nobody's expecting. Now we get to have a more reasonable conversation after losing 4, and they're seeing 5-4. More of what we kind of expected. But honestly, this weekend, a lot of these games were very close and very interesting. Houston barely slipping past Jacksonville 24-21. That Washington win over Minnesota was only 26-20. Kansas City came back. That was another one hell of a game to watch as they beat Carolina 20-17. Los Angeles and the Jets 9-6. With the Rams winning, Miami slipping one past San Diego 31-24. The game everybody was talking about the next day, Dallas over Pittsburgh 35-30. Arizona barely slipping past the 49ers 23-20. And New England being victorious over Seattle being victorious over New England 31-24. Just a lot of close, interesting games.
Yep. Yeah. And, even the ones, not because it's my Jets and the LA Rams, but we said that those were two teams that, could very well tie. And wouldn't you know, it's 9-6, which means no touchdowns. So neither team, did anything really offensively. The difference was it was a field goal battle. And, even there, the Jets came out on the short end. So they're just not having a good season, period. Offensively, I guess defensively too, or, you held L.A. to 9 points, but they're as pathetic as you are offensively. So, you weren't exactly taking on an offensive juggernaut to begin with. But you're right, CJ. Every game, there wasn't, a serious blowout. There wasn't anything, you could almost. The only thing, unfortunately, that was automatic was the Browns losing. And, that's based on habit at this point, more than anything. You don't expect the Browns to come back when they get down. And one of these weeks maybe we'll all be surprised and they'll come back and win a game. But, as far as football in general this week, every game was close, so regardless of who you picked,
They were. It's I'm sitting there looking at it after going last week, 11-1, 12-1, to this week going 6-7 so far. It just how quickly my season went back, because most of the season so far, mainly for me, has been games that I've lost in the last possession or the end of the fourth quarter. Most of the games that I lose, my team, the team I picked anyway, has had the lead at some point in the fourth. And this weekend it just reminded me back to those weekends where I don't think Atlanta had the lead, but the Saints had the lead in the fourth, and Carolina had the lead in the fourth, and I can't remember if the Jets actually had the lead in the fourth, but you're talking about a 9-6 game. San Diego had a lead late. And so it just like, wow, we're back to this again. All right, now we got this updated. Now this makes a little bit more sense. Not quite as much sense as
you would like.
No, it's still not making sense. Somehow I still have you 10 games behind us, and that's just not making sense that you participating in 10 less games. All right, let me keep trying to figure this out.
10 games? I reckon that.
I'm lost in what just happened here. $117. So those numbers are right.
The only one who should be behind is Shannon, and that was because he came in halfway through. You, me, and Shorty have to have the same number of games.
For some reason, I'm not adding something is not clicking in my mind because for some reason you had 117. No, you had 107 there. See, I was already off last week for somehow, some way. What did I do? See, now I got to go back. Now I got to go way back into time because see, it's a good thing I kept. It's a good thing I kept all this stuff on file here.
Okay, very good. At least one of us wrote it all down.
For some reason I have us at. Us all having 130 games, and I have you 120 games. I don't know how that happened or where I slipped up and don't have you the same amount of games the rest of us. I have you matched up there, and I have you matched up there. But anyway, let's jump into some NASCAR here for a little bit. Phoenix just finished. We got our Final Four set for Homestead. How interesting of a weekend, and how exciting is the possibilities this weekend as we can either see Carl Edwards, who tied point-wise with Tony Stewart a handful of years ago, but lost the actual championship due to Tony Stewart having more wins in the chase. We got Kyle Busch, who could be a repeat champion. You have Jimmy Johnson, who could become a 7-time champion. And you have Joey Logano, who could have been in the championship weekend last year, if not for Matt Kenseth retaliating and gets an opportunity to put Penske into give Penske a championship, first time under the Ford banner, as Brett Keselowski won it under the Dodge banner. Mike, Phoenix, thoughts?
Okay. First of all, of the four remaining, I'm going to probably make some enemies with this, but of the four that remain, I would like to see Kyle Busch win, only because the other three. Again, Jimmy would be interesting because of the 7, but I've just never been a great Jimmy fan. I haven't rooted against him. Again, it's not an anti-Jimmy thing. It's just, I grew tired of seeing him win when he won 6 straight championships, and so it's not, and again. Nothing against Steve because I know that's his rooting interest, but I just, even before I got involved with, the 110 Nation, I wasn't a great Jimmy fan, and I always followed Kyle for some reason. And so that's one of the reasons there. I'm not a tremendous Logano fan. I thought he was spoiled when he broke in. And just, maybe that was a little bit of the anti thing too, because when Logano broke in, we had the Home Depot card for Tony Stewart, and I was a Tony Stewart fan back then. So there was a little bit there, but of the remaining, let's see, Jimmy, who am I missing? Logano, and the fourth one was. Carl, I had no real rooting interest one way or the other with Carl. It would be interesting if he won. It would, definitely be a feather in his cap, and probably the championship. Should he win the championship, it would be his best year since like the year that he first got in the '99 car with Roush. Probably last year they were competitive. That team, but I would like to see Kyle repeat. and it'd be interesting. What I really like to see, and I just said this about Jimmy, but I could see the last couple of restarts coming down between Jimmy and Kyle, and that would be really interesting. Who gets either Jimmy gets number 7 or Kyle gets the second in a row. That would be a storyline there. I don't know if I see, based on the season though, probably, I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you, because I saw Nat getting a little anxious, and sure enough, that last couple of restarts there when he wrecked. And then what I thought was really interesting is the 95, when with like 10 laps to go, there was like the restart that he caused, where he caused that wreck and it spin out or whatever that was. And I remember my first thought was, wow, McDowell is going to have a say in how this chase plays out as far as who gets in to the round, and that's how it worked out, because that last restart with like 10 laps to go, and Harvick was still in it at that point, and kind of disappointed to see him not make it. But again, people said all week that his streak could end, had to end at some point, and it was, unfortunately, yesterday. And again, nothing you could really point to, I guess, because his pit stops went all right, seemingly, and there was nothing that stuck out in a bad way. As a matter of fact, he was right up there at the end and competitive, and everybody was saying Harvick at the end, and it just didn't work out for him numbers-wise. And, that's part of it. That's part of the competitiveness of how, the chase was set up now with the playoff system. But I would like to see, like I said, of the 4 left, I'd like to see Kyle, take the second in a row and go from there. And again, 1 and 1A would be it coming down in the last couple of restarts between Jimmy and Kyle would be interesting to me.
An interesting Final Four. Not the Final Four a lot of us expected, as we all expected Truex to still be in it, maybe Brett Keselowski versus Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick being in it. Not quite the Final Four, but a Final Four that puts themselves in the position and has an opportunity to win a championship. And, we can, go down their resume. Like I said, Jimmy Johnson, already 6-time champion, has won multiple races this year. Kyle Busch, defending champion, won multiple races this year. Carl Edwards, technically tied for a championship. The wins tie-breaked it. Multiple wins this year. Joey Logano probably would have been a serious threat of winning it last year if not for Matt Kenseth with multiple wins this year. So all 4 of these drivers very deserving of it. And, I hate the whole, this would be the old system argument being thrown out there. Like I said on Rubbing Is Racing, my first race ever that I got to experience was the 95 Atlanta race. And at that point in time, it was the last race of the season. And pretty much Gordon, all he had to do was just start the car. I think he had technically finished 35th or better, but that's all he had to do to win that championship. And that was his first championship. Going from that, knowing that last year when I went to Homestead, I had an opportunity. There was an opportunity of one of 4 different drivers to win. And as much as I really wish the finances would have been where they could have been, because we've been approved to go again this year. Finances and personal stuff's keeping us this year from going. But knowing that I had the opportunity again to go again this year, and knowing the resume, I couldn't imagine going back to the old system. As we've seen championships be decided by simply all they got to do is start the car, or already have it locked up a race or two before the season even started, or a race or two before the even ended. I truly enjoyed this chase. This format. I think it produces more excitement for the last 10 races. It provides us an opportunity for there to be more than one, contender going through the last part of the season. It's different not having Kevin Harvick in there. It's really weird. And it's sad to say a top five with a fourth place finish. It is not what we expect. Any other driver, a fourth place finish would be a good finish. Kevin Harvick in Phoenix, that's almost just like finishing 40th for Kevin Harvick. We talked about it a little bit in Rubbing His Racing earlier tonight. Alex Bowman, another hell of a finish, showed us, with one more race to go, has showed us all season long since, taking over and being part-time driver in the 88, but being more of the majority. I think it's probably more like 60-40 or 70-30, Alex Bowman versus Jeff Gordon in that car, has shown us, versus him being back in the 23 car, being in the 88 car, as long as he has a well-funded, legitimate ride, that he could be a serious threat. Led 194 laps this weekend. Yet has not got a ride for 2017. What should Alex Bowman do? Where do you think Alex Bowman is going to end up next year? Do you think he's going to kind of wait and see what happens with Junior and in hopes that 88 ends up being his ride? Does he take a lower-funded opportunity? Because I don't think there's any opportunities. I know Steve threw out there Richard Petty Motorsports, but we know how I feel about Richard Petty Motorsports, that they're not quite up there. And I think if you take that opportunity at Richard Petty Motorsports, you're probably not doing yourself any justice, but not taking a ride next year ain't doing you any justice as well. What if RPM comes to him and says, look, we got a ride for you, does Alex Bowman take that? Does he need to take that? What path do you think he needs to take after seeing how he could perform and the level he could perform this year?
Well, CJ, I can look at it from the other side for a second, because I remember, I was listening to Rubbing His Racing earlier, as you know, and rather than looking at it from Alex Bowman's perspective, let's look at it from Richard Petty's perspective. Right now, he's the only Sprint Cup opening, let's say, with a seat opening. We don't know what's going to happen with silly season yet and anything, people moving around. But as of now, as of this date, as of Monday night, as we're talking here to the fans, there is one open seat, that being the 44. Now, if you look at it from Richard Petty's perspective, how often earlier in the season, I remember we had, the discussion about why can't Richard Petty get somebody competitive to sit in his cars, to drive his cars, all along, and we were going by the Petty name, just like, the Hendrick name, and et cetera, et cetera. Why can't he get, being Richard Petty, competitive people? And you would think that people would be, knocking on his door solely because of his name. And then obviously, they have to perform. But But in terms of, that was an early season puzzle, and we got into that discussion. I could see Richard Petty probably going to Alex Bowman and saying, how about it? And then, but again, it's going to come down to, as I see it, unless Junior makes a decision, or his doctors or somebody, maybe Alex Bowman does say, okay, Junior, what are your plans? Either from your doctor or yourself, what's going to happen? And if he has the chance to go with Junior, I think he does that. But if Junior does come back, and Bowman has the opportunity to go for an every week ride with Richard Petty, I think he would do that rather than wait and say, okay, Junior, I'll wait here, and you have to get out of the car in the middle of the season like last year, then I'll take the 88 ride. I think there's a discussion about what Junior's going to do before the season starts, and Bowman makes his decision based on that.
Is Richard Petty Motorsports a team that is far enough along that Alex Bowman can have the success? We've seen him out of the 23 team. We've seen him with the 88 team. Is Richard Petty Motorsports close enough to the 88 team in the funding and where that team is, how far along they are, so Alex Bowman can be successful, or are they closer to the 23 team and it's just going to be another dead-end ride for Alex Bowman?
A tough question, because if you look at Richard Petty, and I don't know his bank balance, but he certainly would have, be running a team, okay, of two cars, you got to have some nice money. And so, like I say, that's a puzzle. Is Richard Petty putting a budget together where he says, okay, we're not going to spend over this amount? It's kind of tough, to read whether he is putting the cap on himself, or is it the driving talent, or what is it? I think he has the capability. I think the team has the capability to be on the level of a Hendrick. It's just what's holding them back. Mm-hmm. We don't know. Is it for instance, is it Eric Almirola who's a step below, and would you could look at it this way: would Alex Bowman be a step up in the drivers he's had, okay, all along? And I would say yes. He would definitely be probably an improvement. More than likely, the way he's competed, he's probably a step up over, Brian Scott. Is he a step above even Eric Almirola? And to pair him with Almirola would maybe improve Almirola's performance. You got to look at that. How much was it? Again, how much was it the equipment? Okay, granted, as much as it hurts me to say this because I'm a Tommy Baldwin fan, Tommy Baldwin's teams were a lower funded team. Okay, but then he goes to Hendrick. Okay, fine. Hendrick has money, is in the upper tier. Now he goes to Petty. Now is it Richard Petty? Is it the team he has around him? Is it the personnel? Or is him being in the driver's seat enough of a step up, and certainly over Brian Scott, let's say, okay? But would he suddenly be catapulted into the number one slot, even if he wasn't in the 43? Okay, he's in the 44, but would pairing him with Eric Almirola improve Richard Petty Motorsports as a whole? I think that's what you have to look for. Would that improve the prospects of Eric Almirola improving, and therefore the whole team, which would, of course, be a feather in Alex Bowman's cap as well. But I think right now it comes down to those two choices. It just depends on whether he goes with the choice that's status quo, or has to do with how soon Junior knows what he's going to do, either through his doctors or through medical reports or whatever. I think Junior's going to have to make the decision that right now that frees all this up as to where Alex Bowman goes.
Let's switch gears for a little bit. We'll come back to NASCAR a little bit later in the show. Colin Kaepernick decided he wasn't going to vote. After all this, and you have an opportunity to have a voice on who the next president is, so you don't feel repressed or anything else. You have an opportunity to stop kneeling and start be able to stand there during the national anthem. You have an opportunity to be a voice, and you choose not to.
Well, I think...
Was this...
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was this the worst thing to happen for his movement? Was not participating in the national... the voting. I understand that a lot of people were in the same shoe. A lot of people either didn't want to vote. A lot of people didn't vote. They voted for third party, a lot of write-ins. I understand that. But you have an opportunity, regardless who you voted for, regardless if it was a write-in, an independent, if it was Gary Johnson, it was whoever, at least you exercise your right, and you can say, I participated in help changing what I feel is wrong with America today, because that's his whole thing. Do you think that really put a hurt on his whole movement?
I think it made him... Now, you made points as far as all through this conversation about, and I respect your thoughts on it, that, you fought like my dad, also in the military, for his right to, have his own thoughts on it and his own feelings and his own, freedom to do as he wishes, and that's what, you guys in the Army, including my dad, fought for. Point made. However, I think it makes him look all the more foolish that he didn't participate in the vote. And the reason, again, and, I keep bringing this up, but, athletes have to understand this. And if they don't, they're, under a rock someplace, I think. It just doesn't make sense. They have to understand, you're right, there are some people that didn't vote. There are some people that chose not to vote, etc. But they're also not in the public eye, okay? Or they didn't make an issue where everybody was going to watch what they do. And so, of course, when you started this thing, Mr. Kaepernick, Colin Kaepernick, it was obvious that somebody was going to look into your voting record, okay? Or not record, but how you voted, okay? Or at least if you voted, because that's what makes it, almost unbelievable that you started this whole thing and didn't finish it, okay? Even if, like you say, if your choice didn't win, so be it. At least they could say they can't make a fool of you and say you made all this noise and then you didn't vote at all. And that's what makes, to me, and I last week it came out and I put it on the 110 page. That's what I headlined it. Now you really look foolish, And that to me was the thing that really didn't sit well with the whole thing, because you made all this noise and then decided not to do anything, and when you had a chance to, like you said, to possibly change things, you know.
And I agree. And I've been one that has said, what he's doing is right, and that's what I served for, was for him to have that right, and so be it. I find it to be disrespectful, but that was your right. But it's also your right to vote. It's also your right to have an opportunity to help make those changes, and you chose not to. And that, to me, just kind of voids out your whole movement, because you didn't take a chance, or you didn't take advantage of the opportunity given to you. The same military that you're disrespecting, that fought for to give you this right, and you chose not to. And I just feel that you kind of hurt your own movement at this point.
If people sat back and analyzed it, it doesn't make sense. These athletes that always want to say things in the social media and then don't do things either. Now, nobody's looking at every athlete, but it just goes to show that you're going to look at Kaepernick because of the proximity of doing what he did so close to the election. Okay, so it just goes to show that any journalist, and I could say this being a journalist myself, any journalist was going to follow up on what he did. And the fact that he did nothing in that sense just made Kaepernick and his, if you want to call it his movement, the thing he started, look all the more foolish,
Crazy. Other mentions out there. Klay Thompson available and Celtics interested. Sirius XM NBA Radio tweeted out, I heard this weekend that Klay Thompson may be available. I heard that rumor going around involved with the team that wears green. Are things not as, are they not as happy as they seem to be? Klay Thompson has often been the odd man out in the offense now that Kevin Durant is in town. Do you think that they would break up the Splash Brother? The only way I see this happening is I don't think you need one with that. I don't think you got to have both of them, especially with Kevin Durant being there. But if you do that, you got to trade him to a team that has a big man, because that's really what you're hurting out there for in Golden State. Do you see at any point of this year, do you think that they split this team up at all, especially the Splash Brothers?
Well, as far as Thompson, now the Celtics are just, who do you take on the Celtics? The Celtics of right now. We're not talking about the Celtics of Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson and whatever, okay? We're talking about the Celtics of today. Now, if you look, the Celtics just this year signed Al Horford, and that was their main guy. Now, who else do they have that stacks up to a Klay Thompson? To me, if you're going to trade a guy like Klay Thompson, like you say, you got to get somebody of at least equal value. And not that I follow the Celtics all that much, but they're rebuilding themselves, and it doesn't seem like they have anybody worth Klay Thompson right now. I could be wrong, but, I don't have their roster in front of me, but it doesn't seem like they have anybody that stacks up to, of equal value right now on their roster that you could call it an even swap. And if you're going to give up a Klay Thompson, you have to get at least equal value back to me. Like you said, you got at least with the same amount of, equal amount of talent or potential.
And I agree. And, Al Horford would be one choice. I'm looking at it, the only way you're breaking up the Splash Brothers, and of course it's all just room, the only way you're breaking them up is you're bringing a center, and you're bringing the piece that you're missing the most of. And if you're trading it to, and Boston is a serious conversation, then that's about the closest you're getting. Not that he's an actual center, but that's about the closest you're getting to a center or someone, or someone that seems to be worthy of just the whole trade. Interesting season so far. Clippers and the Cleveland Cavaliers being the only two teams with one loss, as the Cleveland Cavaliers sit 8-1. The Clippers have gone to 9-1. Atlanta, Toronto, and the Golden State Warriors are your two-loss teams. Then you got San Antonio with 3 losses. It's kind of weird to see Golden State, and it shouldn't, but it's just weird to see Golden State already with 2 losses. It took them, 26, 20, 30 games, whatever it was. Was it 26, 27 before they even lost the first game? And they had that remarkable season last year. It is really, kind of weird to see them with the 2 losses already. Oklahoma started off like fire, and I know they stirred up a lot of conversation. That's kind of fizzed out pretty quick with the 6-4. Same with Chicago, a lot of talk with them. But on the road is really killing them, 2-3 on the road. And Charlotte, I think, has been kind of surprised, 6-3 so far. But Cleveland Cavaliers still staying strong, 5-1. They got that loss late last week or over the weekend, one of the two, and going 3-0 on the road so far. But it would be interesting to see if at any point Golden State felt that it was time to go in another direction and split them up in order to bring a big man in to help take care of the paint and help clean up the messes.
Well, maybe as we get closer to the trade deadline, or the time when the NBA teams make trades, we'll see that later on in the season. But the interesting thing to me, couple of things. Number one, Westbrook, and we said, how many times we said you need more than one person to hold up a team in terms of maybe 2 or even 3 if you could swing it. And for right now, with Durant going to Golden State, Westbrook has apparently done a very good job as a one-man gang for Oklahoma City so far. So that kind of I don't know if that'll continue out throughout the season and maybe the playoffs, but who knows? Out West especially being competitive. The other thing, CJ, and you always say you watch ESPN and so forth, I saw a very interesting video today about the Lakers, and I took special notice of it because they were talking about Phil Jackson, and he, of course, being the president or whatever of operations of the Knicks, or GM or whatever his title is. The interesting thing is they interviewed Jeannie Buss, and they were talking about how the Lakers have fallen. And there's apparently family disputes between Jeannie Buss and I think it's Jim Buss is her brother that runs the basketball operation with Mitch Kupchak. And they asked her flat out if the Lakers don't have at least a competitive season, they obviously aren't going to win the championship with their personnel right now. But they said if they don't see improvement, can they see Jeannie Buss getting involved in the basketball side? And she didn't want to come out and say that she would. It was on Outside the Lines, by the way, if I wasn't clear where I saw this. She said she didn't come out and say that she would, fire her brother, but she said, I will do whatever it takes to improve the Lakers as a basketball team. So that will be interesting to see, because there's apparently internal unrest even after Phil moved on to New York, and there was a lot of speculation that the problem between the Buss family was because Phil Jackson was, engaged to Jeannie Buss. Now with Phil in New York, there's still apparently family drama, shall we say, in running the Lakers. So that'll be interesting to see what happens down through the season. But for now, Jeannie Buss is just, content to be on the business side. We'll see. And they tried to put the reporter, who I forgot who it was, tried to put her on the spot a couple of times with, wouldn't you, as in your position, wouldn't you want to be at least consulted on basketball issues? And she finally said, yeah, it would probably improve matters a little bit, but I let Mitch Kupchak and my brother handle that. So she still didn't want to, come flat out and say it, but they tried to put her on the spot twice with questions like that, and it'll be interesting to see, what transpires down through the season, especially if they go in the tank without Kobe again. So that'll be interesting to see.
I'll tell you what, college football took an interesting twist this week.
Yes.
As we watched, we watched 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9 all go down as we're getting closer and closer to the season wrapping up. As Alabama, of course, went on to beat the brakes off Mississippi State, and 5th-ranked Ohio State beat the brakes off of Maryland 62-3. But we watched the second-seeded Clemson Tigers lose this weekend as they lost to an unranked Pittsburgh team, 43-42. We watched a Michigan Wolverine team, a third-ranked Michigan Wolverine team, get beat by an unranked Iowa Hawkeye team. We watched a fourth-seeded, which this one was really not a surprise, Washington Huskies getting beaten, knocked out of the top 4 by a 20th-ranked USC. Then we also watched Texas A&M. Now I wonder if that board now is smacking themselves in the forehead of actually putting Texas A&M in the top 4 and watching Texas A&M lose 2 weeks in a row this week to an unranked Ole Miss. And then Auburn was ranked number 9. They lost to an unranked Georgia team this week. It's going to make things interesting. Obviously, this didn't really help Ohio State none, even though it's going to put them in the top 4. But because each of the bigs get a bid into the playoffs, we really needed Michigan to have not lost. I think we needed Michigan to actually have won against Iowa to knock them out, and then we beat Michigan, if I saw that correctly. Definitely shook some things up, as I'm sure Ohio State, with their win, will leapfrog into the second seed. And obviously it's going to stir up conversation on whether or not they're getting a guaranteed bid from each of the bigs is the best way to go, or giving us the best 4 teams is the best way to go. It's
interesting, CJ, that if Maryland, I'm sorry, if Michigan moves down even one slot, okay, that it always seems to come down in the Big Ten between those two teams, Ohio State and Michigan. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're an Ohio State fan. Isn't that one of the last games or the last game of the year always Ohio State and Michigan?
It's our last game.
Right. Okay. So that could come down to that in the Big Ten with those two teams. And again, Alabama to me is the only untouchable team. And again, love them or hate them, I mean, Nick Saban on the college level. And again, we talked about this or touched on this at least once, CJ, with certain coaches. They don't like to be pigeonholed, but certain coaches do better on the college level and struggle in the pros. And for some reason, whether it be recruiting or across the board, Nick Saban does a better job on the college level, and it just seems that, no matter what shuffles underneath, he somehow always gets Alabama. Now, obviously, we start with recruiting, and, we said it too, that all the kids of the South basically want to go to Alabama, or, a large majority of them, are recruited by Alabama in the South. And, so that's normal, but once you get them there, you have to have them play your system. And Saban seems to be able to get the most out of his teams, regardless of who he has. He conforms to his talent better than anybody on the college level right now. And no matter, who drops in or drops out of the different slots, he always seems to get the most out of his teams right now, year after year. But that top four, again, is going to be interesting. And, for all the talk about Watson and Clemson, I don't know if they're going to get back, once they fall out of it, can Clemson get back? How strong are they? I don't know. Other than the quarterback, I don't know how strong they are. The quarterback is top notch, but who does he have around him? Or did most of the talent there graduate or move on? You don't know.
It's just crazy to see. We're getting this late into the season, and you kind of, the 10 games into the season, like you feel that we've gotten this all figured out, and we're ready for to see how the playoffs lay out, and that's not even the case no more. And this week just kind of shook everything up.
Yep.
And week 13 is going to be a very funny, interesting week in college football. Ohio State has got Michigan State this week. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, we got to take care of business. Wisconsin, another top. I think that's another thing that's getting overlooked is the fact that the Big Ten have 4 top 10 teams. Even with the Michigan loss, with them barely losing to Iowa, they're going to stay in the top 10. Wisconsin in the top 10, and Penn State in the top 10.
And again, with Clemson dropping out of the top 4 right now, assuming they drop all the way down, when they say all the way, they dropped out of the 2 slot. only Alabama in the SEC, and the SEC was supposedly so strong. And then, like you say, you have possibilities in the Big Ten with Michigan and Ohio State yet to play at the last game, and even Penn State, which I don't, you haven't heard from again for a while for on-field performance. But the one thing you can count on with college football, CJ, is that at the end of the year, when they come down to really making the final decision on the top four for the playoffs, somebody's going to be left out and somebody's going to be complaining, because it happens every year. That fourth team, that fourth slot, there's always somebody complaining, oh, we should have been in and not these guys, blah, blah, blah. And you can count on it. There's always going to be one dilemma. There's going to be one dilemma and one, type decision that's going to come down to that committee, and whoever gets picked is going to be happy, and whoever doesn't get picked is going to say, you haven't watched enough of our games. If it's a West Coast team or some such thing, there's going to be the team that doesn't get picked will have a legitimate reason why they should have been and why they didn't like the idea that it came down to a vote by the committee. It happens every year.
I think two games I'm very curious. There's not a lot of key matchups. I say that with all the upsets this week, but none that are sticking out that I find interesting. As you have a bunch of ranked teams against a bunch of unranked teams, like that, I don't say a lot. But I'm curious to see how confident Chattanooga is as Chattanooga goes into Alabama, 8-2 Chattanooga. So they've had a pretty successful season on their schedule. I'm real curious to see how confident they are going against the number one team in the nation, an undefeated Alabama team, and see if they even give Alabama any kind of fits. I don't expect them to win, but will this be a 62-3 blowout, or will this be a 45-30-something game? How will Chattanooga confidence and how their season's gone reflect on the field Saturday night? And the other matchup that I find interesting, and this one is a big matchup, and that is 11th ranked 8-2 Oklahoma going against in West Virginia, a 16th ranked West Virginia team that's 8-1. I am very curious on how that game is going to play itself out.
Yeah, and I don't. From the little bit I've read about Oklahoma this year, CJ, their quarterback was supposed to be shouldering more of the load, and he hasn't been playing up to his level in past years. And so the Chattanooga game is interesting with Alabama for one reason, and we said this so many times about essentially in college. You can look at it both ways. How lightly does Alabama take Chattanooga? Now, Alabama's the type of team with Saban that I don't think he will let them go into it, and he's probably drilling them all week. Don't fall into the trap. They're a good team, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't let his teams take other teams lightly. But I've also seen, as rare as it's been, I have seen Alabama lose a game here and there. And it's possible, given the nature of the opponent, that they take Chattanooga lightly. So that'll be interesting. I see it more from the Alabama side. I don't think Chattanooga is going to have a problem getting fired up for them. But the only way I see Chattanooga coming out, I agree with you that it could be close if they take them lightly. but, you know, a close game and then, you know, maybe a kick here and there, maybe, you know, something like that could give them a possible win, you know, as outlandish as that seems. But I don't see that, you know, I look at it, Alabama's going to have to lose this game more than Chattanooga's going to have to win it, you know.
I most definitely agree. You gotta like the statistics. There you go.
Statistics?
You gotta like the statisticians, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I'm not 100% sure on what word I'm looking for, but feeling down about the Browns? Are you upset that they have set a franchise record for consecutive losses, both 13, overall 13, and to start at season 10? Well, stop thinking about their chances of going 0-16 and find Mike Holmgren's playoff ticket hotline, because the Browns still can win the AFC North. Yes, this year, I'm not kidding. Is it likely? Hell no. But you didn't give up when the Browns trailed by 10 points with 4 minutes and 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter of a playoff game 30 years ago. So why give up now? Instead, consider the scenario below, which would see the Browns win their first division title since 1989 and make the playoffs first time since 2002. The Browns past the playoff almost certainly must go through the AFC North title, with so many teams jumbled between 6-2 and 4-5, it's surely already mathematically impossible for them to finish 6-10 or worse and get into the wild card. Here's how the standings look ahead of Sunday's game: the Ravens 5-4, the Steelers 4-4, the Bengals 3-4-1, of course the Browns 0-10. And here is what has to happen for the Browns to win the AFC North. To all my Browns fans out there, if you're like me and giving up and I'm not really scared to watch any of the games at this point, here's what needs to happen. The Browns need to win out, obviously. This is in a scenario where the Browns don't win the rest of the games and win the division. They must win 6 games because the Ravens already have 5 wins and would win the head-to-head tiebreaker. The Browns' remaining schedule are the Steelers, the Giants, the Bengals, the Bills, the Chargers, and, of course, the Steelers once again. Only one team above 500. No team consistent, no team healthy. It could possibly happen. The Ravens can't win again, so the Ravens would have to lose to the Cowboys, which possible. The Bengals, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Eagles, the Steelers, and then the Bengals. All possibly could happen, likely no, especially with the Bengals being on that roster twice. Steelers can only win one more game. That means that they would have to lose, that would mean they would have to lose. And of course, they lost to the Cowboys already. Why did it not have? Why have they got that one on there? But it don't have. That makes no sense. This must be done right after the Thursday night game. The Steelers can only win one game. Obviously, one of them already locked out of the way. They lost to the Cowboys. They can only win one game, either against the Browns, the Colts, the Giants, the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, or the Browns. And the Bengals can only beat the Ravens, and that's the only game they can win. A Bengals sweep of the Ravens in the final 6 weeks is vital must only beat the Ravens. When it comes to the AFC North, they're out of the rest of their games. So they got to lose tonight to the Giants. They must lose to the Bills, beat the Ravens twice, lose to the Eagles and the Browns and the Steelers and Texans. That would have the Browns 6-10. It would have the tiebreaker over the Steelers, who would be 6-10. The Bengals would go to 5-10-1. The Ravens would be 5-11. So for those out there, those Browns fans that are hopeful, I'm not one of them that are hopeful. I've watched enough of the Browns play this year that I have no reason to be hopeful. But for those out there that are hopeful, the Cleveland Browns are not eliminated from the playoffs. As a matter of fact, they can actually win their division still.
Well, CJ,
Yeah.
what I said what I see is what I was going to ask you is if you have the Browns' email address, because it seems more likely that they need somebody to pick their first pick, and perhaps you could call them or email them and suggest somebody that would probably be more helpful to them than who they have in the front office picking, their draft picks. I think that's partly their problem. You could probably, as a fan, pick better than they could.
Something's got to happen. This has gotten to be beyond ridiculous. And 0-10 start. Worst start ever in the Browns' history, and 13 consecutive losses. It's shame.
It seems almost inconceivable, CJ, with the amount of times that the Browns, and I'm sure they're not the only team that's been in this predicament down through history, but since we're talking about them specifically now, that they have had so many opportunities to have the number one draft pick and missed on all of them is just inconceivable. There's got to be something else going on there. I don't know what it is. My Jets are not world beaters when it comes to picks either. But, I mean, it doesn't seem right. I mean, you got to figure even the Jets had Bill Parcells at one point, so at least they had somebody in the front office that had some juice as far as knowing about the game, but it doesn't seem like
we had Bill Belichick and we had Nick Saban, so
right. It's just that's what doesn't make sense. That's what I say. At least
what's crazy to know, outside of I think the last 2, maybe 3 years, we don't have none of the first round draft picks that we even drafted. We've had multiple talented players that we couldn't put a team around, so either we went ahead and went another direction and got rid of those players, or they decided, you know what, I'm going somewhere else. I'm tired of being part of a losing team. Joe Thomas is one of very few players that has had the successful career that he has had, multiple. I think almost every year that he's been in the league, he's been a Pro Bowl selectee and is one of the best at his position that has stayed loyal to the Browns through it all, who probably could have went on a team that won a Super Bowl by this time in his career. But it just kills me to know some of the talented players that we've had that either we did hold on to or because we didn't put a team around them, they went elsewhere. The fact that up until either 2014 or 2013, we had lost the previous, we've gotten rid of the previous, or they've moved on the previous 5 or 6 first rounders that we even drafted. And how are you unable to have, one, a starting quarterback start all 16 games? You've not done that since 2002. It was 2001, 2002 with Tim Couch. And you've not had a season where your starting quarterback in game 1 of one season was your starting quarterback again the following season. How is that even possible?
Right. No, and I think that's sad when you think of, what's sad about that, what you said is, thank God for Joe Thomas, because even he sticks out as someone that I even know about, and I don't follow the Browns, okay? But when you think about it, here's an offensive lineman who can open up holes, and you have nobody that can run through the hole. So what good is it? How does it serve the Browns to have this guy opening holes when nobody can run through the hole? So that's part of the sadness, that you can't even get a running back or a what do they call it, a position guy that can handle the ball, you got a guy on the offensive line that's like your top athlete, and nobody to handle the ball. And that's what makes it sad. You know, it's just overall there's something wrong with the front office with the Browns. I mean, there's something wrong with the Browns, period, you know. But it's got to start with the draft. That's my opinion. With a team like that, you figure, especially in football, they said you could turn a team around in a year or two. Well, that's if you get multiple draft picks and you know what you're doing with them. And that seems to be the problem, is that the Browns, whoever they pick, don't pan out, for one reason or another.
I don't know, it's just crazy to me. And then now you got the whole RG3. You got the whole RG3 situation to take care of. You brought him in, it was like a 2-year contract. And, okay, you get your hopes up and, be like Washington and go into the next season and try to give it another shot, or do you go ahead and cut your losses knowing that this guy cannot stay healthy? I mean, this team seems to find itself in bad situations. You kept holding on to Josh Gordon in hopes that he would finally quit smoking weed, and that obviously is not going to pan out. It's like you hold on to a bunch of bad contracts, make a bunch of bad contracts, and instead of investing, it's like they don't invest the time to do their research. It's like they get the cliff notes and go off that to decide who they're going to draft or sign versus actually read the whole book and get all the details and get the background and get the history. And that's just what it seems like to me.
Sometimes you have guys with injuries, and sometimes, there's different things that happen to different teams on a given season, on a given year. But I think when you look at a situation like the Browns, you look and you say, okay, you can understand where teams that say, we're going to draft the character guys. You can understand it when you have guys that have been, on drugs or, more off-the-field problems, and they still get drafted. Now, the thing, that's what gets me. I can understand why teams turn around and go, okay, we're going to draft for character guys now. Guys that are going to stay off the pages, the non-sports pages, say, like police blotter. Okay, you can understand that move, but it just seems that some teams are just, no matter what they do, they're snake bit. RG3 wasn't that good in Washington either. He was just as fragile. But you figure, okay, maybe give it a shot. He was already fragile in Washington. So, I don't know. Yeah, he could have panned out too, but here again, that's two teams he's been to that he's had virtually the same, I don't want to say, is it a leg injury with him again, or is it the same one? But whatever it is, it's injury related. And like you say, now what do you do with him? Do you give him another year? Do you bring him back to training camp and say, okay, you're competing for the number one job again and taking a chance that he goes down again? Or, what do you do? That's the dilemma. And the Browns don't seem to have the guys that can figure that out in their front office, and that's the problem.
I want to make sure that I take this opportunity to thank Fit for Life. You guys can check them out on Facebook, Fit for Life. You can also go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. Right inside, I got this pretty banner. All you got to do is click on it and let you know if there's a location near you, 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Clean facility, courtesy staff, everything you need. That is Fit for Life. Also got to thank Snafu Seasoning, the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat. Thursday night, 9 p.m., 100% all-natural, no preservative meat rub. It's a great grill seasoning. Make sure you guys check them out. That is Snafu Seasoning. Also got to thank the I-95 Network and Mile High Radio for rebroadcasting or syndicating our shows. Without all these marketing partners and networks, we would not continue to be able to do what we're doing in the fashion that we are doing it. So I got to make sure that I thank each and every last one of them. I'm going to give you the opportunity to open up the floor here, Mike. Was there any topics that we've not jumped into that you've either not shared or that you've shared over the last few days that we've not jumped into yet, or any that are on your mind or whatnot?
You can look down your timeline, basically. Off the top of my head, I don't exactly remember everyone from like Thursday or Friday after Wednesday. But there was a couple of things. Basketball-wise, again, no surprise, Duke playing North Carolina, and the football team at Duke beat North Carolina for the first time since like 1964 or some crazy year like that over the weekend or over from the time of, again, Thursday to now Monday. And I posted that at some point last week as well. So basically, as far as NASCAR again, the only thing that came out that was no surprise, based on the past couple of seasons, is that Matt Kenseth got knocked out of contention as far as, again, for the second year in a row, last year with Logano and this year with him getting spun out again, and that was NASCAR, basically the story there, and leading to the Final Four with Logano taking that race. I heard, CJ, you talking with Steve Billmeyer on Rubbing His Racing. Again, if you want to talk about the Xfinity chase, the guy that I could see that'll really be motivated, I mean, all four of them will be motivated for the championship, but the guy that could see really put a cherry on his season, considering he's going to this be the second car on Furniture Road next year in Sprint Cup, would be Eric Jones. That would be some way to end his Xfinity career, if you say Chase career, because next year he won't be eligible for the Chase races, even if he runs a few a la Kyle Busch type races early in the season. That'll be an interesting, Chase situation, but to see him get the championship would be interesting. Other than that, I don't know. You looking on the timeline and see what I posted in the past couple of days, but just interesting things, and I kept note of the people we've had on the show that went to Phoenix. Dominic finishing 31st in the truck race, and I want to say Dylan was 15th or 17th, somewhere in there, during the truck race on Friday night. CJ. Dominic 31st, I remember. I want to say Dylan was either 15th to 17th, sounds right to me, where he finished. I did post it.
It seemed like he finished 17th in the message you sent. No, I was watching the video of the restart and watching Alex Bowman and the Matt Kenseth incident. And at first I'm looking at it like, wow, Alex Bowman just dumped Matt Kenseth. But after getting a chance to watch the replay, that was kind of more of Matt Kenseth coming down, and I'm assuming his spotter must have thought that Alex Bowman was not going to get there when he got there. And, of course, the bump from Kyle Busch obviously helped Alex Bowman be underneath him when Matt Kenseth came down. Do you think that hurts Alex Bowman's, I don't know, I wouldn't say reputation, but how do you view that the rest of NASCAR took that?
Well, after it, and I didn't see it in slow motion over and over again. I mean, I ran it a couple of times, but from everything that I was on the threads with Steve's group there, and because I'm an administrator and I happened to be running that thread with Steve on Sunday, a lot of people were saying that it looked like Matt went down on Alex Bowman, and so they weren't faulting Alex Bowman, they were faulting Matt Kenseth. And I think that might have been, the first person you look, unfortunately based on last year too, the first person you look at with the Logano and Kenseth deal was, based on the 2 years running now, everybody was looking at Kenseth as what happened. They didn't see Alex Bowman as being as faulty or as at fault, put it that way. At least from the input I received, or saw people writing about, little comments and so forth on the thread, that they faulted Matt Kenseth more than Alex Bowman for that move. Seemed to be that they thought that Matt was trying to move down and moved into Alex Bowman. But I don't know, like you say, the push from Kyle, I don't know. But they, at least at first glance, seemed to be more people that were blaming Matt for going down into Alex rather than Alex causing the problem.
We had this discussion earlier. I'm kind of curious of your thought. We talked about on Robin is Racing. Jimmy Johnson wins the championship this weekend. He claims his 7th championship, putting him in the talks of Dale Sr. and Richard Petty for 7 championships. Some NASCAR fans are not big on it. They don't like the fact that Jimmy Johnson possibly could win his 7th championship. They don't like putting him in the same conversation as Richard Petty or Dale Sr. Now, my point of view is this is a different era. The competition's different. The rules are different. The format's different. To me, it's like trying to compare Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant to LeBron James. You can't. It's all different. But I wouldn't say that I would never say that none of those three were the best in their time, or at all, a great in their time. What is your thoughts on Jimmy Johnson possibly winning his 7th championship? And how do you view that?
I think it's interesting. I think there are old-time fans that, and we've talked about this when we talk about on local track level, about halls of fame and, old-time fans that hold the retired drivers in higher regard. And we just got done talking to, guys on my program, Paul Massey. You had the Hall of Fame induction this past weekend and how they're held in greater acclaim at certain points because of, their longevity, say. And I think in the case of the two guys you mentioned, Petty and well, not so much Richard, I'll say Earnhardt, I think the problem with putting Jimmy with the fans anyway, with the fans that say, I don't like, it being in the same conversation, is strictly because his name is Earnhardt, and we've said it in relation to Junior and so often. And I think that's the basic fan base there, that why they have a problem. You can look at it both ways. I mean, yes, it's a different era. Okay, you have to look at it that way. The competition may not have been as strong, in its own way. I mean, you had Waltrip when he was a driver. I'm sure you had people back in that era that said, competition is better now than it was in the 50s, say, So that goes with any era, in probably any sport, you have these discussions. But I think it's more pronounced with Jimmy because I still think you say that NASCAR fans are more spoiled, or however you want to put it, with racing and in this particular sport, where you don't get them looking at different eras as much as basketball fans with Jordan, say, or the Jordan era and this era and that era. For some reason, racing fans don't look at that generally. They like their favorites, and that was it. And I think, like I said earlier, and I'm not changing direction, it's just I haven't been a tremendous Jimmy fan, but on the other side of that coin is you have to give him credit for doing, and the whole team basically credit, for doing 6 in a row and being in line for 7th. There's just no way around it. Who else is close in this current time, And again, you can't fault Jimmy for the rules being what they are, Yes, he's in the chase era. It's a different situation. It's a different setup. But that's the rules you're under, And but you have to give credit where credit is due. You don't have to be a Jimmy fan, and you just have to look at the difficulty of doing 7 in a row or 6 in a row as a stance. And the same thing with Jordan when he was, there was a stretch there with the Bulls where he had three or 4 championships in a row. That was unheard of since the era of like Bill Russell with 11 into from like the 50s, the late 50s to the 70s. And that Celtics team, with Havlicek and all those people. So, just on the basis of talent, you can't go by, Jimmy's in this era with this amount of talent and these people that he's competing against. He's not competing against, Richard Petty, except in some fans' memory, maybe, or even Dale Earnhardt in some fans' memory, and that's the problem, with fans. That's the problem with fans, that you can't match them up to different eras, and nobody does, and everybody tries it. It's an interesting thing because every sport has the same debate, CJ.
Yes.
Like, every sport does it, and you can't do it. It's not valid to me. It's done, but it's not valid.
And I agree. And I hate this debate, especially with when you talk about the NBA, when you start talking about Michael Jordan versus Kobe Bryant versus LeBron James, it's a different era. It's different rules, different format. Same with NASCAR. I mean, the cars are more even today than they were then, because now you just have one template. The bodies are even pretty much the same versus what they were back in the day, where you could tell the difference between a Buick and an Oldsmobile and a Ford and a Chevy. It's different. The competition is different type of competition. The format is different. The rules are different. There's no racing back to the caution. There's an overtime. There's so many things different now that weren't the same with Senior, that weren't the same with Richard Petty, and you can't compare one to the other. I feel that myself, you, and Steve are probably on the same boat. We feel that they were the best of their time. There's no trying to compare each of them and whether or not they all should be classified in the same class because of how many championships they won. Richard Petty was the best at his time. Senior was the best at his time, and Jimmy Johnson was the best at his time.
Again, you have to give extra credit, if that's the way to put it, to the fact that not only, okay, now he's going for 7 in how many years, okay, but we know one thing. Jimmy did 6 in a row, and that team did 6 in a row. Now, the other thing to look at, when is the last time, if you talk about eras, where crew chiefs, this is in the age of where crew chiefs can almost change almost weekly or at least yearly, okay? You had Chad Ganous and Jimmy Johnson and whatever, the pit crew was, the rest of that crew, basically sticking together for 6 years in a row. The last time I can remember that a crew chief and a driver matching up that long was maybe Richard Petty with Dale Inman, okay? And you didn't talk back in the days of Richard Petty. I mean, I'm sure there are times that the crew chief changed, but it wasn't as much of a media event when they just did that stuff internally, and all of a sudden the new crew chief was on the box, But now you have the internet, and you have like NASCAR.com. Every time there's a change somewhere, they're writing about it, and they're writing about the reason for it. You have to give Jimmy and that team credit for doing 6 in a row, okay? And like him or hate him or somewhere in between, you got to give him credit for doing 6 in a row and being in line for 7. How many can say that?
Not too many.
Yeah.
Not too many.
And there's one thing that you were mentioning too that I meant to mention when we were going over basketball a while ago. LeBron. I don't know if you saw this before I posted it, but I definitely gave it to you last week. And it doesn't diminish LeBron in any way. But another thing that came out with LeBron that he just should have stayed away from, in my view, is he made a statement last week to a media member, and of course it became newsworthy. He said that if the Cavaliers won a title this year and Trump was in office, I guess he said this maybe right before the election, that he wouldn't go to the White House. And I posted it just as a point, on the 110 page. And I must have opened a sore somewhere, because under the post, I don't know if you saw, there's people saying, who cares? it's like it wasn't an event. Now, I didn't post it to get on LeBron necessarily, except to say, and how many times have we said this, CJ, they should just keep their views to themselves and stick to, like when they're talking about social media, stick to the basketball in his case. Don't get involved unless you're outwardly asked. And I don't know if he was outwardly asked the question, but he put his 2 cents in and said he would not go to the White House if the Cavaliers won, say, this year and Trump was in office. And I just found it so out of character for him to do that, to get involved in something like that. It's just another time where he kind of like slipped. And I don't know. Those things are more humorous than anything else. And the fact that they brought up such fan outrage just was, laughable to me to see some of the comments.
Yeah, usually that's something that's, he usually stays out of all that. Well, I'm not going to say all that stuff. He's been involved with a couple different movements, but for the most part, he does stay out of that and kind of keeps his personal thoughts and stuff to himself.
And I think you made a good point, CJ. You made it in the past about, they shouldn't really air their views a la Colin Kaepernick, I guess, things like that. And even if it's not so controversial, they shouldn't be talking politics, unless they're outwardly asked. I mean, I'm sure there are some journalists along the way, given the time, whether it be election time or, wanting their comment on the news, maybe here and there. But in my circumstances anyway, as a journalist, I can't say, and granted mine is as yours is, more on the local level, I can't envision myself going up to, say, a Riverhead Raceway driver and say, what's your opinion of Donald Trump, and having it, on the radio. I just, it's not a question I would necessarily ask unless it came up in conversation, and I don't see that it ever would, And it doesn't, it only engenders controversy and bad feelings sometimes.
Well, that kind of brings up, talking about Trump and NASCAR, that brings up an interesting point. Do you have an issue or do you have an opinion when it comes to NASCAR drivers such as Austin Wayne Self this weekend in Miami? He's going to have the Trump colors on his truck. What are your thoughts about drivers such as Austin Wayne Self having like Trump as their sponsor on their car?
I don't know. I don't know if it's now. If they're acting as a sponsor, are they getting money or are they just advertising Trump? That's the question. Whenever you have something on your car like that, unless it's something to, unless there's money related to it or an actual sponsorship, then I could see it. I don't, or if it's something on the local level either, where you're trying to give, like I've spoken to C.J. Lehman locally about like having, the colors of the Leukemia Society on their car or doing something of that nature. I could see something of like a nonprofit organization. But as far as the political stuff, as long as you're, as long as are they giving money, like a sponsor would to get their brand out there, or are you just, if it's a personal feeling I don't know if it, if like, for instance, if the driver you're speaking of, voted for Trump. I mean, would you want to put that on your car or your truck? I don't know if that would be tremendously appropriate. And yet there was not only the truck, there was another car that had it before. I forget whether it was Xfinity or Arca or what it was, but I saw the Trump car, I think it was 52. One of the numbers had the Trump, the white car with the Trump banner on it. And I don't know, is it just, advertising for Trump, or why are they doing it? Is it just to get their thoughts out there? If it's just to get your political thoughts, it doesn't seem to be appropriate. I mean, not every driver was putting their voting choice on the car, And the only reason I could see it happening is if they're actually putting money towards the sponsorship of the car that week. That would be like any other NASCAR sponsor would. But
yeah, I don't know. There's certain things that I feel need to stay out, even with sponsor. And I understand this is a sponsor-driven sport, but and even though I never in a million years would have voted for Hillary, I didn't vote. If I would have voted, it would have been for Trump. And it's not that I didn't want to vote. It's more the fact that I've moved like 3 times since the last time I voted and just absolutely positively had no clue where to go to vote. It is more or less what it boiled down to. Not that I felt that Trump was this great candidate. I just felt that he was the lesser of the two evils, and that's just what I would have voted. I'm not one side or the other. I have voted against the last 3 presidents. So for those keeping track, I did not vote for Clinton, I did not vote for Bush, and I did not vote for Obama. I just feel that there are certain things that need to stay out of NASCAR or stay off of uniforms or race cars, and political views is one, regardless if it's a paid sponsorship or just, and I'm assuming that it would be a paid sponsorship. I couldn't see a team not looking for, because I seen this tweet post, whatever it was, a few weeks back, actually before the actual election. So they already knew that Trump was going to be on that truck a couple weeks back, and
right.
So I don't think that I don't think it was a free political view. I'm assuming that that it's an actual sponsor, because I would assume with all that time they would have looked for an actual sponsor if it wasn't already a sponsor thing. So I'm assuming that it was it's a paid sponsorship. But either way, I'm not big on it. I don't want to turn on a race, and I know it's not the first time that Trump has been on race cars. He was on the 55 Sorensen vehicle for the Sprint Cup. I don't think that's the first time for Austin Wayne himself to have Trump on his car. It seems like I've seen Trump on one other car. I don't want to turn the race on and have to be plastered with Trump or Hillary Clinton or Gary Johnson or anybody else's stuff. We had to deal with that throughout our whole timeline on Facebook or any kind of social media, all the commercials, all the news, everything else. Sports, to me, is my opportunity to get away from the world. This is my, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, this is my opportunity for 3 hours to get away from the world, not talk about the world, be able to talk about sports. When I sit down on Sunday and turn on the Red Zone, I get an opportunity from 1 o'clock until 8 o'clock to tune the rest of the world out and just watch nothing but football. Or if I turn on the race, I got 3-4 hours that is consumed of just NASCAR. When I turn SportsCenter on or any other sports news outlet, if I turn Fox Sports Radio on in the morning, it's my opportunity to get away from the world. I get away from all the murders, all the rapes, all the child pornography stuff. I get away from the political views, the religious views. everything. That is my opportunity to escape from the world. That's why I love sports so much. Well, one of the reasons. I'm not going to say that's why. But it gives me an opportunity to escape the real world and be part of the sporting world. And the last thing I want to do is turn it on, regardless of what political figure is on the card. The last thing I want to do, regardless of paid or not, is turn it on and see basically a Trump billboard, then a Hillary billboard, and then a Gary Johnson billboard, because that's not why I turned the race on for.
Right. And just to underline a couple of things you said there, CJ, to add to them or back them up for you. I was thinking of the escape angle also, where you want to escape with sports into a little bit of unreality for a while, but also on top of that, you talk about different eras. Okay, maybe in the 60s and 70s, if around, or even before, say the 60s, where you didn't have cable, okay, and it got to be around election time and you wanted to get your name out there and you were a politician. Maybe you did sponsor a car when there were so few opportunities. But now you have cable channels which are devoted solely to politics, especially around election time, CNN, and any number of others. And, you don't need that kind of exposure, you get plenty of exposure on the news, on the cable channels. You don't need it on the sports channels. So that backs up your point a little bit, on that. And just to add to what you said too, you saw it at least twice. I hadn't seen it on a truck. You saw it on a truck. I saw it on a car. So that it was there for at least two teams. I think it was either an Xfinity car, but I did see it on a car itself, not a truck. So that means it made at least two appearances,
Yeah, I think it was on Austin Wayne's truck once before, and then it was on the 55. I want to say it was Reed Sorensen's car a week or two ago in the Sprint Cup Series, if I remember correctly.
Right.
I just, it could be a political figure that I wanted to win. It could be a political figure that I work for. It could be, I don't care the scenario. I still don't want to see it. That's not why I turn NASCAR on. It's not why I turn a football game on. As a matter of fact, that's a big reason why I turn all those things on. It's just to escape all this stuff going on in the world. And that would be, one of the key things that I'm trying to escape. It is, especially all this election stuff.
Yep. And, just the idea of, like I say, you have so many opportunities to follow, almost to the annoying part, point as we brought up. Now, on a related topic that we brought up a couple of times on your shows, it'll be interesting, and this will be, I guess, fodder for Shannon on Wednesday night when we're all on together. He initially was the one that brought up the ratings, and I'll be interested to know how that, now that the election is over, that first wave of ratings after, the election now is over, what happens with the sports ratings on the sports across the board.
I wonder if this weekend did change any. I still think a lot of America is still consumed into the politics right now, especially with the Hillary followers taking the loss as bad as they've taken it, and the rioting, and the curiosity, of what Trump is doing, who is appointing, and everything else. and just reaction out of the American people. I wonder how much it has changed, if it's changed at all at this point. I would think even if the ratings do start going back in the other direction now that the election's over with, that it would probably be next weekend or the weekend after, when everything is finally settled down and you know.
Yep, we'll see, and that'll be that to me, like Shannon was bringing up too, will be the difference between, is it the election like we were speculating, or is it truly the fan reaction to the sport in general, be it football, hockey? I think Izzo proudly point to the fact that hockey is not affected in terms of the same popularity because of it being basically Canadian in nature, or at least as a sport. But you don't hear it so much versus hockey versus the other sports, football, baseball. Now baseball being over, but and they were unfortunately in the middle of the election season, but now with the World Series over. But how many? I guess what are we going into now? The football and the basketball more so than the other more so than hockey maybe. And you know what that does to the ratings will be interesting to see. Now there'll be no excuse if the ratings are down in, say, football. It'll be because of the football performance and not anything else, you know.
In the second quarter, the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Giants are tied up at 7 early on, about 14 minutes, basically second quarter just getting underway. We'll keep you guys updated on the updates on the score of that tonight. So far, pretty even, too. 116 yards to 104 yards. Passing has been pretty. Cincinnati's quarterback Andy Dalton 5 for 6. Eli Manning 10 of 13. Pretty close down the line here. So we'll keep you updated throughout the night as Cincinnati does have the ball right now. Bump it up. That Klay Thompson trade rumor is gaining some momentum. It's now trending on Facebook. Says that the Golden State Warriors have shot down that trade talk or that rumor, but they ain't shot it down too well. If it's gaining momentum and it's now something that's trending on social media, funny how that works.
Another interesting thing with basketball that I just thought of off the top of my head that I saw just before we came on the air, CJ. Andrew Wiggins last night with the Minnesota North Stars. Listen to me. I got Izzo on my mind here. Minnesota Timberwolves scored 47 points in a game last night against the Lakers. And the thing about that was his 47 points equaled the entire output of the Lakers as a team. So, you know, at one point, the entire Laker team of what, 12 guys, however many got in, off the bench too, I don't know. But the idea was he was one man on the Minnesota Timberwolves who scored 47 for the game, and that was the output at one time for the entire Laker teams. So
tonight we got some interesting games. The New York Knicks on top of the Dallas Mavericks, 63-47. Oklahoma, Detroit in a good one. We get ready to go into the fourth. Detroit is up by 10, 78-68. Houston at home over Philadelphia right now at the half, 65-52. Speaking of rumors in the Celtics, New Orleans, though, is on top of Boston at home in New Orleans, 56-51. San Antonio already starting off to a strong start over Miami. They're up 37-21 halfway through the second. Memphis and Utah just got underway. Memphis is up 9-7. Earlier tonight, the Indiana Pacers over Orlando, 88-59. And here in about an hour, the Clippers and Brooklyn Nets are going to tip off in L.A. The 9-1 Clippers to face the 4-5. I'll call them the New Jersey Nets. The Brooklyn Nets.
It's an interesting thing, CJ. As you were running down those scores, I was thinking of not the score so much as a team. When you mentioned Houston, the Rockets, around the preseason, we started talking about different teams and players, and you were mentioning James Harden not being one of your favorites. Well, it just so happens that every time I see James Harden in the media now, it's usually for something very good. He's apparently played like Oscar Robertson for the Houston Rockets this year. Not that I follow the Houston Rockets either, but he's making news for good reasons this year. And usually it's for, I guess he's their starting point guard at this point, and he's apparently pouring in points. So he's having a very, very good year or a very good start to his season this year. Definitely unexpected.
The Chicago Bears season just went from bad to worse. The NFL announced on Monday that wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey, has been suspended for 4 games for violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing substance. The suspension will cost Jeffrey a reported total of $3.4 million in lost salary. The suspension means that the 2-7 Bears won't have their leading receiver for the next 4 weeks when they play the Giants, Titans, 49ers, and Lions. Jeffrey isn't allowed to return to practice until December 12th and won't be eligible to play until December 18th when the Bears host the Packers. With Jeffrey out, there's a good chance that the bad Bears offense is going to only get worse for over the next 4 weeks. Jeffrey leads the Bears with 630 receiving yards, which is 205 more yards than any other player on the team. The receiver also has 40 catches and 1 touchdown. Big hit.
Not that it's making a tremendous difference, but I understand what you're saying because that's the one guy that can play. Assuming the quarterback gets him the ball, that is.
Big hit for the Chicago Bears, even though they're 2-7, and even though they're kind of one of the jokes of the NFL. You take one of very few legitimate targets from Jay Cutler, and it's about to make Jay Cutler's day even worse than what it already has been for the last handful of weeks.
Yep.
Rod Gronkowski undergoing tests after brutal hit. Apparently, a punctured lung is what I saw earlier. This report tried to say earlier that was not believed to be a punctured lung. Since then, they've updated that, and what is believed to be a punctured lung. They only miss. And that's crazy to know that a punctured lung means you're only going to miss 1 game. They're talking about only believing him to miss 1 game. I'm New England at this point, and unless you find yourself unable to win games, I'm resting Gronkowski. I am pulling him out of the starting lineup. I'm giving him a chance to recover fully. If it takes 2 weeks, if it takes 4 weeks, if it takes the last 7 weeks of the season, I am ensuring myself going into the playoffs that I have won my quarterback's best target, but I'm doing everything I can to have as many of my starting lineup on that roster come playoff time.
Yeah, and especially when you consider, CJ, their history, okay? And how many times are we going to say it? Here's another situation. They could plug anybody, almost anybody, into any position on that team and not see a tremendous drop-off and still get a performance that's good enough. Might not get them, 30 points a game, or it scored 30 points of offense, but they'll be just good enough to win. And they've done it. That team and Denver has done it repeatedly. And, so especially that team shouldn't have any reservations about resting their top guys off an injury like that.
Yeah. I mean, I understand Gronkowski is a competitor and he's going to want to be out there, and I understand you want to make sure that your players are in rhythm. I understand all that. But Gronkowski being such an important piece to that offense, me personally, I'm resting. Look, you can come back 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, or playoff time, depending on whenever we feel you're 100%, whenever you feel you're 100%. But let's look at the bigger picture right now. We just suffered our second loss. We're still one of the best teams in the entire AFC. We're going to win our division. The Jets, the Miami Dolphins, and the Buffalo Bills can't seem to stop tripping over their own feet when given the opportunity. So we're not going to sweat that so bad. But you got the New England Patriots 7-2, Miami 5-4, Buffalo 4-5, 3-7. So I mean, and I'm looking at it until you find a time that you are in serious threat of no longer being the sole, having sole possession of first place. Sorry, but you rest. You get ready. We're going to need you in playoffs. We need you 100%. We need to make sure that Tom has somebody to throw the ball to consistently. We need to have one of the most freakish tight ends who ever played this sport be ready to play in the playoffs, and that's what I'm looking at.
Right. And you were talking about different topics, CJ. I just thought of another one as I'm looking down. I took some notes here and looked up at the timeline. The other thing I put on, not to steal Izzo's fire. I'm sure he'll give us more details tomorrow night when he's on about the NHL. But the new Las Vegas franchise will be debuting their colors and their logo on November 22nd. And the little bit that they've let out, and Izzo probably knows more. I know he knows more than I do. But the little bit that I've read so far is they're going to be something like the Knights, some form of Knights, KNIGHTS, and there'll be another name associated in front of that, I'm assuming. But one of their colors will be steel gray, which obviously corresponds, I would think, to the armor of a knight, the armored suit, whatever. So one particular color that came out would be steel gray, and whatever color is paired with that, along with the logo.
Definitely looking forward to that. I know Izzo's got to be excited. That what's really great about that is on the 22nd, that puts us next Tuesday night. Tuesday night would be NHL night here. We'll have Izzo on the show. So hopefully all that gets unveiled.
Yeah.
You say hopefully that gets all unveiled before the 9:30 time slot when Izzo joins the show, and he can give his thoughts, opinions, and everything else about it.
Yep.
Did you get an opportunity to watch your quarterback? Was that Petty?
The Jet quarterback you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see a lot of the highlights of that game this week. Like I said, there wasn't too many highlights based on, the score, because it's 9-6. It sounds like, unless somebody scored a touchdown and a safety, which I wasn't aware of, sounded like a battle of field goal kickers more than anything. And I don't know. Those two teams, with the Jets having the year they're having, okay, and the LA Rams, again, up and down, and they're so weird because on one week they play so well, and then they just, I guess it's the, I want to say immaturity, but a lot of the guys are the same guys that have been on the Rams before. They didn't make tremendous wholesale changes. The only change they made was the location. I mean, they didn't make too many trades. They didn't make, other than, and we've gone over this, the quarterback who is a puzzle to me that he hasn't done anything, that he's just been on the bench. And if they, and you had a different opinion on it as far as you didn't expect him to play, but I just find it interesting that he has taken virtually, as far as I'm aware of, no snaps at all. Excuse me.
Speaking of Los Angeles, San Diego is running out of time to make a decision. I know that they got the votes, and they got, I want to say till January or so, to decide, whether or not they're staying in San Diego or going to Los Angeles. As Los Angeles, the Rams reached out to them and gave them an opportunity to split the stadium with them, kind of like the Jets and the Giants. Could you imagine not having the San Diego Chargers no more, having the Oakland or Las Vegas? I don't know if they're going to stay the Los Angeles Chargers, or if they're going to change their name.
I know.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I have an issue with team owners relying on cities and relying on the taxpaying dollars to rebuild their stadium. I understand it's great for the economy, but that's kind of a cause and effect thing. To me, that the stadium and the team owners asking the taxpayers to pay for their stadium, to me, is like saying, okay, well, the next McDonald's or the next Walmart that gets built, the taxpayers should help build the Walmart, and that's not how it works. This is a business. We don't get a check at the end of the day just because we agreed to help pay through our taxes, pay for the stadium, and it's supposed to be treated as a business. Therefore, if you want an upgrade, that you're reaping all the benefits that Jerry Jones is getting those millions of dollars that come in from the sponsorships and advertising and everything else, like the merchandise and everything else, ticket sales, then he should be the one that's solely responsible for paying for the stadium. You know what you're getting into when you buy the team. You know the requirements, just like the local McDonald's. If the person, I'm not going to use McDonald's necessarily, but a mom and pop shop that decides that they're going to pay, rent a place. They know that they're responsible for the upkeep. And even the McDonald's, they know if they lease that building, they're still responsible for the upkeep. And the taxpayers are not responsible for it. I have an issue. Do you agree that, or have a problem at all with the team owners and the organization reaching out to the taxpayers to pay for a new stadium or an upgrade?
I would boil it down into one sentence, CJ. That being as simplistic as it sounds, this is how I always thought of it when they started with seat licenses and all the rest of it, and they took fans. To me, they took fans, the fan who has like 20, 30, maybe $100 in $20 bills in his wallet, okay? I have an issue with millionaires asking the populace to help pay, okay? When you consider they're millionaires, that's why they own the team to begin with. You don't see any, body from John Q. Public owning a football team in this case, So I'm going to say when we started talking about the Chargers and moving, I used to work for, on a freelance basis for a publication in San Diego, and I knew it was a husband and wife situation, and I knew them quite well, not personally, but I knew them like from over the phone and through Facebook and everything else. And I know they were tremendous. They had Padres and Charger tickets. They were from lived in San Diego, and every year supported the Padres and the Chargers. And I haven't heard from them in a while, and all I could do is think about them when I saw this in the media, and they'll be very upset should they lose their one of their two teams on a professional level to another, be it Las Vegas or L.A. or some other place. They'll be two upset people. But I have a problem with millionaires asking the general population to help, finance the stadium in general.
And on top of that, just like any other team, they're going to regret it. Baltimore regretted it, and so they got the Ravens back when Baltimore moved to Indianapolis. The Browns and that whole organization regretted it, and they got their the Seattle area when they lost the Supersonics. They're still regretting it. They still want to have Oklahoma back. It is one of those things that you end up regretting almost every single time after it happens. Why not?
Especially in an area that has one team in a given sport. I mean, I've said it about myself on a number of occasions. Growing up in the New York metro area, I was spoiled. I had choices. I had, the Jersey, well, not so much Jersey, but even that, the Jersey Devils, the Jersey Nets at the time, who originally came from Long Island, the Islanders and the Rangers. And so you had multiple teams to choose from. Okay, that's not the norm. I'll grant you to have three different teams or whatever in a given sport in your area. But, especially these teams, and you mentioned two of them, the Supersonics in Seattle and San Diego, these are areas that have one team in one sport, and when they move, they have nothing. And when they make a mistake, look at the Rams as an example. The Rams moved halfway across the country to St. Louis, realized they made a mistake, and where they end up? Back in L.A. again. This is like they could have stayed there from the 1960s, you know. It's just, and they went back into the same area, you know. To me, it doesn't make sense. You know, when you can't say if you're one team, especially, more so if the Portland Trailblazers ever wanted to move. Why? I'm sure their fans would be up in arms because Portland has no professional team other than basketball. You know, these kind of teams shouldn't be moving, CJ.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I feel an organization, especially the front office, needs to find a way, no matter what, to keep their team where it's at. And I'm not big on teams reaching out and asking for taxpayers to pay more than they're already paying. I already know that part of the money that's paid for taxes go to that. This is your business. I don't see the local Arby's, Taco Bell, McDonald's slipping in something into the voting ballot to help by us voting to help pay for any remodels or upgrades or new buildings. We just don't. And I don't know. I personally have a big issue with this.
And when you put it on the level you just did with some of these businesses like Arby's or whatever, well, sports. How many times have we said this? Sports is a business now, and you know, it's like fans contribute to the money that millionaires make by virtue of purchasing tickets. So you're already contributing. It's not like being a fan, you're not contributing anything. But then to be asked to purchase tickets, which are outrageously expensive anyway, and then plus to be asked to, pitch in when it comes to new stadiums, that's like a double hit, which is unfair.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. I was trying to pull up any of the headlines that was all the headlines that was posted.
I know I put something on college football up with the 4 teams. We went over that. The 4 teams, the 1 to 4 that got knocked around, except for the one, which was Alabama. They got reshuffled. I'm trying to think of anything else that I put up. I mentioned Andrew Wiggins, even if I didn't put that up yet. I think we covered pretty much the headlines, CJ. I know NASCAR both. I know you said on Friday night that after my show I reminded you about the truck race. Did you happen to catch it at all?
I caught a little bit of it before I ended up dozing off. And that's the downside. That's kind of what's going on right here. Even though I fell asleep at 5 o'clock yesterday, struggling to make. Been up since about 3:30 this morning. I sat down and I turned the race on, and I think Dominique and Dylan were both top 20 at that point in time. Maybe it was still early in the race, and I found myself dozing off and going to sleep. I guess that's probably the most difficult thing about my position now is the fact that I get up at 3:30 even when I have a working car. I get up at 4:30 in the morning and trying to make it all day long at work, then come home and even get things accomplished. I try to catch a nap in between, and I can never doze off, and the next thing I know, it was showtime. I do have an interesting story for this morning, though. I didn't get to catch the rest of it, but I will tell you all an interesting story, just to give you all a laugh. I forgot about this. But for those that don't know, I do, while we're going through the financial situation we're going in my household, where we don't have a working vehicle right now, so I do have to leave an hour early for work in order to get to work on time. So I got to get up about 3:40 in the morning so I can head out the door at 4 o'clock so I can be at work at 5 o'clock. And this morning when I woke up, it was pouring down rain. It was one of those, oh, no, this is not what I want to do this morning kind of days. And luckily there was a couple umbrellas left at the store, so I got one at the store in case I got to walk home and don't have an umbrella with me, and I brought one here, so I take it with me. And you know, if it rains, I take it with me. And so I start making my way down to work, and the first part is right off a main highway. Well, I say main highway. It's 87. It's a 2-lane. Takes you from one city to the next. Some parts it's actually 3 lanes. But speed limit is 55. Where I got to cross the street, or where I do cross the street, down to 45. The only bad part about it is right around the corner. So walking is not so bad at 4 o'clock in the morning because you see the headlights. But at times, trying to get out off the side road that we live off of, it's a pain in the butt because during the daytime you can't see the headlights, and so we're not quite, we're just right where we're at. The side road is just when it gets to 45. So cars are still doing 55, 60s on their way, slowing down through this area. So I head out the door probably about 3:45. My back was not feeling great. I stayed over at Shorty's house over the weekend, and my bed is a more firm bed, and hers is it's very soft. But it's not good on my back. And the last couple of weekends, especially, it's felt like I could barely move and hardly get out of the bed. And so for about the first 10 to 15 minutes of my walk this morning, I just kept having this sharp pain, and it was difficult to walk. But it eventually loosened up. But I'm walking down the side of the road, and this part, there's obviously no sidewalks or nothing, so I can't see nothing, so I don't know if I'm walking in puddles or not. I can just see the dirt, the sand. I try to avoid it all that I can, but I'm walking in puddles, I'm walking in mud and everything else. And I get to what is about halfway where I'm walking. At this point, I've already been on the sidewalk walking, and it stops raining a little bit before the halfway point. And so I put the umbrella up. You know, my feet are wet, and the bottom of my pants are wet. But I go ahead and close the umbrella, and I'm just carrying it. There's a slight mist in the air. No big deal. And I get in front of a place that sells guns. We've got a shooting range called Guns Plus down here. And at that point in time, a semi goes by. And at that point, he hits probably the biggest puddle there possibly could be. I go from being thankful I ain't got to carry an umbrella and staying dry to now I get dumped with a whole puddle worth of water, and I'm soaked. Tell you what, that was probably the least favorite part of the whole morning. I thought I was going to escape it with just wet feet, and that was it. And no, wasn't fortunate enough this morning, as I definitely got dumped on.
Just at the point that you put the umbrella away, Ted. Unfortunately.
Yep. Unfortunately, I don't think it's supposed to rain tomorrow. I don't think it's supposed to rain the rest of the week, so I might luck out.
Got to get yourself a skateboard, CJ, or something with wheels on it.
Well, see, I have a mountain bike, and 3 years ago when my ex left me, I had found out for months she had been cheating on me, and I told her, look, you got till the end of the month. I found out like the middle of September. Like, you got till the end of the month to move out. She took the only working vehicle we actually had at the time. And even though her and the guy she left before didn't have a license, she took it. And so at that point in time, I lived up the same highway. I lived 10 miles up the road versus living in town. And so I had to bike it every day for 3 weeks up and down the same highway, 10 miles each way, for about a 3-week period of time. I still have that same bike. The only thing that's kept me from using it, other than I need to pump up the tires, is if I take that bike to work in the morning, that makes me committed to having to take that bike home, ride that bike home. So far, this month that has gone on, I have found a ride. I've walked almost every morning. I would say there's probably been about 5 mornings that I've not walked out of the month. But I've not had to walk home any afternoon at all at this point because I have been able to find, friends or customers that have become like friends and stuff that I've not had to find a ride home or make the walk home. So that is kind of the only thing that's kept me from pulling out the mountain bike, is I don't want to be committed to actually having to ride the bike home. Even though the ride home is simple, even though, what is a 45 to 50-minute walk would probably take me 15, 20 minutes. My walk on the way in and what would be the bike way on the way in is all uphill. It is nothing but uphill. So it's not about the bike ride, because the way home it would be straight a ride home, other than the fact that I would have to cross the main highway or the main road through town twice. And from anywhere from 3 to 5 o'clock, the time I would be going home, it's unbearable to try to cross the road. Traffic's just unbearable. And so, like in the morning, I cross traffic twice, but it's 4 o'clock in the morning, because either I cross over to get on the opposite side of the road, because technically I should walk behind one of the other kangaroos or Circle K's and take the side road and come up, so I don't have to cross the bridge. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't have to worry about walking the side road, because traffic's so little that I can look far enough ahead that I know once that car passed, if I see no cars coming ahead, I can get on the bridge, cross the bridge, and be on the other side of the bridge before the next car comes, because there's no place to walk or anything. Like, there's no room. There's exactly 2 lanes. There's really not a full 2 lanes on this bridge. So, and the reason I cross is that way I can see in front of me versus trying to look behind me, and then once I cross the bridge, then I cross back over on my side of the road. Well, going home, I would have to do the same thing, but I would have to take that side road. So crossing the first time is not so bad. I got 3 or 4 lights, but once you cross it over to the other side and take that side road, once you come back on the other side, you only got like 1 more light, and it's not really a crossing light to be trying to cross, because it comes out of a neighborhood, and so there's really not that much traffic, and it's not really that lengthy to be crossing. So that's why I'm not really committed to taking the bike, and so I have to commit to cross all these roads at between 3 and 5 o'clock when the military's getting out and everybody's getting off work, and the way the traffic flows with the redirection of traffic is they cut it where you can't cross over Ford Bragg no more. You got to take the side road, or a road that they rerouted, and everything else. It's just a big hassle. I'm just not committed to it. But I do have a bike, and I've contemplated, especially after today, pulling it out, knowing that I'm probably not. And the other reason is I didn't know it was going to take a whole month to get back on the road. And I'm waiting for my bonus check to probably come in. They're trying to get to us before Thanksgiving. So I know that I'm going to at least be walking for this week and half of next week, depending on what days I work. with the holiday coming up. So, and then there from that point, how long it takes me to get the truck up. But I've contemplated knowing I got more of a time frame as a couple of weeks. But I don't know. I just hadn't tried to make that commitment.
Then you need somebody to have an SUV or a pickup truck or something that can fit the bike in the back of the trunk, I guess.
Yeah. That's kind of what has kept me from being committed to doing it. That's really it. I have the bike and I've put the miles on it, and it's been 3 years since I've actually rode it. I can remember when I had to pull it out, or I bought it and rode it the first time, how miserable it was because I hadn't rode a bike in like 20 years, and I don't know how sore I was and everything else, but it wouldn't be an issue now. It's not about not having it or not doing it. It's just having that commitment at this point.
So in other words, the people that say it's like riding a bike, you don't forget, they don't take into account that if you don't ride it for 20 years, it's a different situation entirely.
Yes, very much so. Well, we're getting to the end of the show. How about you let them know what's going on Friday, where you can be followed, and get this thing wrapped up for the night.
Okay, CJ. Thank you very much. You can get me, first of all, Friday night. We have Bob Conant as a locked-in guest. Bob, as I said before, is the announcer for Riverhead. Been an all PR man, basically a do-everything man, to deal with Long Island racing. And he's celebrating in 2016, or has celebrated as we come to the end, 40 years in auto racing. So we'll discuss with him his career to this point and what he has going on for his future plans, both in racing and out of it. So we'll talk to Bob, who's a long-time acquaintance from me, and well-deserved kudos in the last 2 weeks or so. So we'll have him on Friday night. Another 2 guests, which I'm hoping to lock up within the next day or two as well. So it should be a very diverse program again. I look for diversity in my guests every now and then, and that's the ideal setup for me as far as guests and conversations that we hold on Friday night from 8 to 10 with myself and CJ. So that's Friday night so far, and I'll be updating you fans later in the week as I finalize the other 2 guests. Also, you can get me on my personal Facebook page, the Hot Laps with Stats pages, which again I ask, especially in the off season, you fans to give me suggestions on guests, anyone you'd like to hear from, let me know. And also, you can get me read what I post on the 110 pages, and also a blog, which I'll check this week on what's coming up golf-wise. If there's a tournament in the U.S., I will be writing about it on the www.110nation.com blog pages. So keep up with that. And also, finally, you can get me at my Twitter account at Stats108. Okay, and that's where you can find me, CJ.
Make sure you guys tune in every Monday through Wednesday right here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network for the 110 Nation Sports Show. 7 o'clock, we do this every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 3 hours of sports talk. I know we got Mark Brett from Brett Jones Racing joining us tomorrow night, and we got Izzo, our very own NHL expert, joining us. Outside of that, I'm not seeing a schedule, so I'm assuming that we have no other guests joining us, which is cool. We can do this. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter at 110 Nation. Check out our fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. I got to make sure that I thank Fit for Life, Snafu Seasoning, I-95 Sports Network, and Maha Radio for making all this possible. Got to show love for our marketing partners and our networks. Without them, we would not be able to do what we're doing and continue doing what we're doing. Trying to think if there's anything else. Thursday night, Racing with Big Sweat, 9 p.m. Mike lets you know on Friday night, 8 p.m. or Hot Laughs with Dad. Saturday at noon, we got Happy Hour Garage. So make sure you guys tune in for all those great shows. Do us a favor this week. Share us with one friend. Everybody, and we got over 1,000 fans, so I know there's plenty out there, and I know with the hundreds of thousands of people who listen to this show on a monthly basis, I know there's plenty of people out there. Share us with one, make sure that you like our fan page. 2, share us with one friend. All of us. There's not a single person that I have ever met that does not have at least one friend that is a sports friend, that is on Facebook. Share us with them. Let them know about us. Share our page to them. Look, give them a like. Check them out. Help us out. Continue to grow. That would be really cool of you guys. Draw night back here, 9 o'clock. I'm sorry, 9 o'clock. Looking at the time, 8. Back here, 7 o'clock. Do this again. You guys have a great night. Till then.
Thanks for listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show with Mr. CJ Sports. You are a part of the 110 Nation, so be sure to visit the110nation.com for everything related to the show. You can follow CJ on Twitter at 110 Nation and on Facebook at 110 Nation Sports. Until next time.